Make Walters your first stop on July 4th. Walters is opening at 9 a.m. ahead of the 11:05 Nats game against the Red Sox. Walters is located across the street from the ballpark.
Now Rutledge ready. Kicks, delivers. Breaking ball hit in the air to deep center. Young going back, way back, looking up, and it has gone goodbye. It is the second three-run home run of the first 4 innings of this game for Riley Green. And here with nobody out at the top of the 4th inning, it's now the Tigers 10 and the Nationals nothing.
Now the 1-1 to Lyle. Swinging a ground ball sharply at right side. It's scooped up by the second baseman Keith. He'll wait for the first baseman Torkelson and throw it on to him to end the ball game. This one all Tigers. Game 1 of the doubleheader. They win it 11-2. The set and the pitch. Lowe lines one right side. It's fair. Past the first baseman, down the line, toward the corner. Abrams scores. Wood will score. Garcia's headed home. The throw toward the plate from Torres. Garcia dives. He's in there. They all score. Over to third is Lowe, and the Nationals lead it 6-4. That one cleared the bases, and Lowe with a huge hit brings in all 3. The 2-2 pitch. Swing, it's poked in the air, right side. Chasing over Nathaniel Lowe. Lowe drifting. Lowe makes the catch. And that is fitting. Lowe's bases clearing triple, scoring 3. Turn this game around. He secures the final out. And the Nationals salvage a doubleheader split with a 9-4 win.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who is at Nationals Park. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. The Nationals on Wednesday played for the first time in 3 days, played at home for the first time since June 19th. Wednesday was July 2nd. And the Nats split a doubleheader against one of the best teams in the majors, the Detroit Tigers. Wednesday afternoon, an 11-2 loss to the Tigers in Game 1 in the Nats' first ever game with a jersey patch sponsor. Wednesday evening, a 9-4 win over the Tigers in Game 2 in a game in which the Nats scored 6 runs in the bottom of the 8th. The Nats now are 36-50. The Tigers now are an American League best 54-33. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by the DC Grays, part of the Cal Ripken Summer Collegiate Baseball League. The Grays are playing their games this season at Woodbridge High School in Northern Virginia. To donate and learn more about the Grays, visit dcgrays.com. You can find us on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. And we have a website you could check out, natschatpodcast.com. So MLB's 2025 All-Star Game is coming up. The game will take place on Tuesday night, July 15th. This year's All-Star Game is happening at the Atlanta Braves Truist Park in Georgia. MLB on Wednesday night announced starting position players for this year's All-Star Game. The Nats have 0 starters for this year's All-Star Game. The Tigers have 3 starters for this year's All-Star Game. The Tigers are a really good team. The Nats certainly experienced that in Game 1, but mark a really nice win for the Nats in Game 2. And thanks to 2 guys whose offensive numbers are rising, Nathaniel Lowe and Josh Bell, the Nats numbers 4 and 5 batters respectively, a combined 5 for 8 with 7 RBI. Great to see them do as they did in Game 2.
It really salvaged the whole day for the team. I mean, think about the emotional difference between them getting swept in this doubleheader, getting blown out in the first game, and then blowing a lead in the second game and not being able to mount a comeback, versus what they did do, which was put together one of the best rallies we've seen from them all year. I think certainly under the circumstances, who they were facing, when in the game it occurred, that ranks right up there with anything. And you're right, Nathaniel Lowe and Josh Bell were a huge part of it. You need that. We know what C.J. Abrams and James Wood can do. We know that Luis Garcia, has been able to make enough good contact to get himself on and come through with some big hits himself. But you need lineup depth, and those are the 2 guys who have to drive in runs. Nathaniel Lowe has done that. He's now got 58 RBI on the season, and Josh Bell's doing it a lot more recently than he was earlier. The season totals still don't look great, obviously, but if you look back over really the last month or so, it's solid numbers that you kind of would have hoped for all along from him. And it may be too late to salvage the whole season, but it does make a difference. And in a game like this, he's got 3 RBI hits over the course of the game, including a huge double in that 8th inning rally. And you need that. It makes a huge difference to have that kind of depth and protection and really take advantage of what the guys at the top of the lineup are doing when they get on and they don't necessarily drive themselves in.
There really was not much to the Nats offense in game one of the doubleheader, the 11-2 loss. The Nats scored just 2 runs, although the Nats in this game had 9 hits and 6 walks, but the Nats went just 2 for 11 with runners in scoring position, and all 9 of the hits were singles. But the 9-4 win on Wednesday evening in game 2, the Nats 9 runs, 11 hits, 3 walks, and 7 for 11 with runners in scoring position. How about that efficiency? The 11 hits, a triple, a double, and 9 singles. I mentioned the Nats scoring 6 runs in the bottom of the 8th. Also in this game, the Nats struck out 12 times, including at one point striking out in each of 8 consecutive plate appearances against Tiger starting pitcher Jack Flaherty. But the offense in this game was good. The offense in this game was clutch. I mentioned the 7 for 11 with runners in scoring position. Nathaniel Lowe and Josh Bell went a combined 5 for 5 with runners in scoring position. Lowe is the Nats starting first baseman and cleanup batter, 2 for 4 with a 3-run triple and an RBI single. In that Nats 6-run 8th, had a first pitch 3-run triple down the right field line for a 6-4 Nats lead. Lowe's OPS for this regular season as of games through June 20th was just 665. His OPS now is at 700, so quite the leap in about a week and a half. And Josh Bell, he is the Nats starting DH and number 5 batter, 3 for 4 with an RBI double and 2 RBI singles. He went 3 for 3 with runners in scoring position. He in the 6-run 8th had a full count opposite field RBI double off the left center field warning track for a 7-4 Nats lead. Bell's OPS for this regular season as of games through June 21st was just 607. That OPS now is at 657. And you mentioned the way Bell has been going. You talk about like quality of contact. That RBI double he had in the 6-run 8, that is like vintage Josh Bell. When he was going so well for this team in his first stint, that's the kind of contact that you saw. And, to the point that you were making, it's not just the results that Bell is getting. He looks a lot better. He seems more like himself here recently.
Yeah, all 3 of his hits in this game are to the opposite field, and that double was the best struck of them all. And yeah, he's maybe not connecting for power in terms of pulling balls over the fence, like he had that one stretch in Seattle way back when that we thought he finally was on a roll, and it turns out that he wasn't. But that's okay. And, we talked down a few weeks back when he hit that low point, and he finally said, you know what? This idea of trying to hit the ball in the air, it's not working. I'm just going to go back to what I always did, which is try to hit the ball hard. And he is doing that. He's hitting the ball much harder, much more consistently, using the entire field to do it. And maybe he's not going to end up with, 20 plus homers that he hoped he'd have, but he's driving in runs in important spots. And I think that's, critical for him and for this team. As long as he's going to be a part of this lineup, and, I think for at least the remainder of this month he will be, and we'll see what happens at the trade deadline. They need him to come through in those kind of spots. And he had not done that a lot through the first month and a half to 2 months of the season. So it's been really good to see that from him. It's a long time coming, of course. There were plenty of bumps along the way, but he is finally swinging the bat the way I think everybody kind of deep down felt like he could all along, and were frustrated they weren't seeing it from him.
James Wood, he is not an all-star game starter. He will be an all-star. I think it's safe to say that. We'll find out the all-star game reserves Sunday evening beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern. Wood in this doubleheader. Game 1 as the Nats starting DH and number 2 batter, 1 for 5 with an RBI single. Game 2 as the Nats starting left fielder and number 2 batter, 1 for 2 with a single, 2 walks, and a stolen base. And we did see a decent amount of Paul DeJong. So the Nats on Tuesday afternoon announced having returned DeJong from his minor league rehab assignment and having reinstated him from the 10-day injured list. He had been on that since April 16th. This due to a fractured nose that he suffered in the Nats 3-0 win at the Pittsburgh Pirates on April 15th. The corresponding roster move, by the way, was the Nats optioning first baseman Andres Chaparro to AAA Rochester. DeJong played in both games of the doubleheader. He in Game 1 came off the bench to play shortstop, went 0 for 1 with a walk. He in Game 2 as the Nats starting third baseman and number 6 batter went 1 for 3 with an RBI single and a walk. We've talked about DeJong. I don't know how much of him we'll be seeing moving forward with Brady House entrenched as the Nats number 1 third baseman and C.J. Abrams, of course, said as the Nats number 1 shortstop. But nice to see DeJong back and good to see him contribute in this doubleheader.
Yeah, let's just start on, a human level to see what he went through on April 16th in Pittsburgh when he takes a fastball off the left side of his face. To see him 2.5 months later back in a big league game, that's a big deal. It really means something to him. And I know that this season hasn't worked out the way that he or the Nats would have wanted to, and we maybe don't have an emotional connection to him because he wasn't here very long or hasn't been here very long. But if you can't appreciate what that meant to him, just to come back from that frightening injury and be able to stand in there at the plate and take some good hacks, I'm sorry, but that still means something to me. Now, as far as what we're going to see from him here moving forward, it's a tricky spot. Brady House is the third baseman. Now, he didn't start both games, the doubleheader, so that was an opportunity for DeJong to start. I think you're going to see him maybe at second base every once in a while, maybe even as a right-handed DH. If they're facing a lefty and they want to give Bell the day off, maybe fills in for Abrams at shortstop. I don't think it's going to happen a lot. But the problem is they also have Ahmed Rosario, who holds a lot of those same roles and is also right-handed. So for these next few weeks, it's going to be hard to find at-bats for everyone. You can't be taking at-bats away from House or Abrams or even really Garcia at this point. So what are you going to do? These are two guys who have or should have maybe some kind of trade value before July 31st. But the only way they're going to have value is if they're playing and producing. And I don't know how Davey Martinez is going to find enough playing time for both of them. So we'll see where this goes. I wouldn't expect a whole lot out of either of them. But just on an emotional level, good to see Paul DeJong back. That's a significant development for him.
Yeah, nasty injury that he suffered well over a month ago.
This episode of Nats Chat is brought to you by DC Grays Baseball. DC Grays Baseball is an all-volunteer nonprofit that brings baseball and softball to kids in under-resourced neighborhoods of DC. Inspired by the great Grays team of the Negro Leagues, who played many championship seasons in Washington with stars like Josh Gibson and Buck Leonard, the DC Grays have developed their MVP program. It gives boys and girls in underserved parts of DC the same opportunity to pursue their baseball and softball dreams as do kids from more affluent parts of the DMV. The Grays provide expert coaching, uniforms, equipment, and tournament travel free of charge. A donation of $100 will help a child in DC to participate in the Grays MVP program. The Grays also field a team in the Cal Ripken Summer Collegiate Baseball League. To donate and learn more about the Grays, go to dcgrays.com.
I can't say enough about MacKenzie. He had a lot of pitches. We had a long conversation after the fifth. He wanted to go back out. And that says a lot about his maturity. It really does. So I was proud of him for just taking the ball and trying to get through that inning. So, I mean, that's kind of what a number one starter does, right? I mean, he wants to go out there and try to get as much as he can, and he did a great job.
So the Nats starting pitching in this doubleheader split against the Tigers on Wednesday. We had a really bad outing in Game 1, and we had a, shall we say, gutsy outing in Game 2. We'll start with the latter. So MacKenzie Gore was the Nats starting pitcher in the 9-4 win over the Tigers on Wednesday evening. Gore was not at his best, but he ended up only allowing, officially, 2 runs in 5 and a third innings. So it's not like he got rocked. He gave up just 3 hits, which were a double and 2 singles, but he issued 4 walks, and he recorded just 2 strikeouts, an uncharacteristically low strikeout total for Gore. Also, his pitch count was sky high. He over his 5 1/3 innings threw 111 pitches, 65 strikes versus 46 balls. But as we have discussed in the past, a test of an ace isn't always what he does when he's at his best. It's what he does when he's not at his best. Gore clearly was not at his best, but he still only ended up allowing 2 runs in 5 1/3 innings. And I thought it was really telling. Davey Martinez, during his postgame session with you guys, made it a point early in the session to highlight Gore, to commend Gore for the job that he did in this game. And Davey talked about Gore having wanted to stay in the game.
Yeah, that was the key to it all. I mean, he gets through the 4th inning, and he's already at 90 pitches. And you're thinking, well, you hope he can get through the 5th, and he may not even make it that far. He ends up having a really clean, quick 5th inning, and he's at 98. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, well, that's probably going to be it for him tonight. But he comes back to the dugout. We know what the situation is on a doubleheader where your Game 1 starter, Trevor Williams, only went 3 innings and put a lot of added pressure on the bullpen. And so Gore and Martinez had that conversation in the dugout, and Gore said, I want to go back out there. We'll take it batter to batter, but I feel like I can give you more. I had a clean, quick 5th inning. And Davey said that he needed to hear that from MacKenzie Gore. He says that's what a number 1 starter does. Now, Did it work out? Not exactly. He got one out, then he walked a batter, then he gave up a single, and that's the end of that. But the fact that he wanted to do it, that he did, give the effort to get up to a career high in pitches with 111, I think it did say something about him and his, emerging role on this team. I'm not sure that's the kind of conversation that Gore would have given the same answer, maybe even earlier this year, but certainly not last year. And that's growth from him and understanding what his role is on this team, that on this night, even if he wasn't at his best, they needed as much as they could get out of him because there were a lot of innings to cover over these two games. And it wasn't his best, but he got through it. He gave him what he could, and he gave him a chance to win the game.
He did, and this is not an easy lineup to navigate. We certainly saw that in Game 1, and so, to allow 2 runs in 5 1/3 innings against the Tigers is no crime. It just really stood out. 2 strikeouts for Gore in this game. We have become spoiled by his tremendous strikeout totals this season, and so you see that, and you're like, whoa, that is not something we have come to expect from him with the kind of season that he's been having.
Yeah, he noted that the Tigers had a really good approach against him. They kind of eliminated some of his pitches that he wasn't feeling. He kind of got down to only throwing 2 pitches for the most part. They were fouling stuff off. He couldn't put them away, some long at-bats. But he got through it. And again, that's the sign of a good pitcher is you're not always going to have success doing it the exact same way. You got to find different ways to do it. And on this night, he did have to find a different way to do it. And it worked. It wasn't the best he could have been, and he would have liked to probably end his night on a higher note than that. But I do think it was a big step forward for him to do that against a really good lineup and to push himself maybe beyond the point that he's normally used to pushing himself.
All right, so we mentioned MacKenzie Gore throwing 111 pitches over his 5 1/3 innings. Pitch efficient, he was not. But lack of pitch efficiency was taken to a whole new level with what happened in the first inning of Game 1 of this doubleheader. Trevor Williams had yet another bad outing. He allowed 7 runs in 3 innings. He gave up 9 hits, which were 2 homers, 2 doubles, and 5 singles. He did have 4 strikeouts versus 1 walk. He actually had more strikeouts than Gore had. But Williams, over his mere 3 innings, threw a whopping 86 pitches, 54 strikes versus 32 balls. Williams, in the top of the first, allowed 6 runs as he gave up 2 3-run homers. He and that Tigers' 6-run first threw a jaw-dropping 54 pitches. Now, for comparison's sake, Kyle Finnegan, in his great relief appearance in the win at the Angels this past Sunday, 3 scoreless and hitless innings on just 30 pitches. 3 innings, 30 pitches. Trevor Williams in this first inning, 54 pitches. Wow, that was something. And so for Trevor Williams now, you're looking at 17 starts, an ERA of 6.21, a whip of 1.54. The ERA would rank dead last among all qualified pitchers in the majors. The whip would rank next to last among all qualified pitchers in the majors. But Williams isn't a qualified pitcher because he has too few innings, even though he has made 17 starts. Think about that. We've had the Trevor Williams conversation many times. This is becoming the Patrick Corbin conversation of recent years. I hate to keep asking you the same question, but I don't know what else to ask at this point. I mean, it seems silly to ask anything else. Do you think this outing, do you think the state of his season brings us any closer to Williams being out of the Nats rotation?
I don't, unless he's hurt in some way, and maybe they can come up with a reason that he's hurt. I don't know, but I don't, and I'm not saying I like that answer, but that's the answer that I'm given when I ask people about this. And I think we know the reasons why they're probably not going to make that move. But in their minds, he is still a more viable option than the alternatives. Now, there is a decision coming later this week. What the doubleheader did create is a scenario in which they're playing 6 games in 5 days. So they are going to need another starter for Sunday against the Red Sox, unless you're bringing back Williams or Gore on short rest. And the way they pitched, both of them pitched in this game, you can't do that. That's not an option. Maybe you go with a bullpen game, but that's sure asking for a lot from this group to try to pull that off against the Red Sox. So potentially, we see Cade Cavalli on Sunday. Now, his last start was actually pretty similar to what we saw from Williams in this game. His last start at AAA, 7 runs in 3 innings. Very similar. So he's not exactly in peak form. Now, he's been better over a longer stretch until that one. let's see how the rest of this week plays out. I'm not sure. He should normally be going probably Friday or Saturday for Rochester. If he doesn't, then that's a good sign that we may see him on Sunday. But if they do that, I suppose it depends how it goes, whether they would try to keep him in the rotation and then decide what they're going to do with Trevor Williams, or send him back down, maybe potentially if it doesn't go well. So I don't know the answer to that, but I don't get the sense, at least in the immediate aftermath, that this particular outing is going to change anyone's opinion about Trevor Williams. Let me just say this. I don't think I'd ever seen anybody throw 54 pitches in the first inning before. And it turns out, no, I hadn't. Sarah Langs of MLB.com Research looked it up. There had not been anybody in the big leagues throw 54 pitches in the first inning in a decade. It was 2015, the last time that anybody did that. That's rare territory. And you understand why he was still out there, because it's the first inning of a doubleheader, and you're going to have to leave him out there and try to get something more from him. But boy, was that ugly to watch. And it was painful to watch that all play out. And sadly, the kind of inning that maybe not quite to that extent, but we've had to endure too many of those kind of innings from a couple of guys over the last several years for this team. And we understand why they were still out there, when common sense would probably say they should not have been out there any longer.
It's just so frustrating because we thought we were done with this with Patrick Corbin being gone from the team. And, with Corbin, at least you could say 6 years, $140 million. That this guy's quote unquote contract is part of the reason for him staying in the rotation. 2 years, $14 million. It just drives you nuts when you think about that. And the other thing is this. So Cade Cavalli, I think, should be in the rotation over Trevor Williams, even though I get it. Cavalli isn't exactly kicking the door down, but Williams is a road to nowhere. I'm not saying you cut Williams, just put him in the bullpen, that's all, and have Cavalli in the rotation. But there's more to this than that. The fact that there isn't another viable starting pitching option here is the problem. Like Shinosuke Ogasawara, here is where that signing not working out really starts to hurt you. And I know that he has gotten injured this season, but he did not appear to be major league ready in what we saw from him during spring training. So, this isn't just about Cade Cavalli. This is also about a lack of legitimate starting pitching options for the Nats at the major league level right now. Now, it is worth noting that MLB Pipeline has updated its top 100 prospects list, and two Nats starting pitching prospects continue to rise. Travis Sikora now is the number 30 overall prospect in baseball. Harleen Susana now is the number 55 overall prospect in baseball, but they're not major league ready yet. And they probably won't be until, probably next season, best case scenario. And so the fact that we're having to sit here and endure another guy who you can make the case is quantifiably the worst starting pitcher in the majors is just a really tough swallow for Nationals fans. I hear your pain on this because we thought we were done with this, and apparently we're not.
I hear your pain as well. Believe me, I feel it the same way. When you cover the same guy pitching like this, it's hard to find new ways to write about it and to talk about it. And as Al, as you note, he is not part of the long-term plan here. You're right that the Ogasawara signing is not helping matters. Also, the injuries to DJ Hers and Josiah Gray. Now, before the year's up, we may be able to see Josiah Gray, and that could be the opening for somebody else to pitch in the rotation. But that's probably September we're talking about. Hers is out for the whole year and probably at least part of next year as well. And who knows if we'll ever see Ogasawara or not. So that part of it is especially frustrating. And for an organization that actually at one point in spring training was trying to tout increased pitching depth, that has not been the case at all. And, you keep going back to, I suppose, given all that, you say, well, I guess I understand now why they signed Williams. But at the same time, they had already signed Michael Soroka for $9 million. It was a couple weeks later that the Williams signing went down. I can't say that I know what the market was for Trevor Williams. I find it hard to believe there were a lot of teams offering 2-year deals for him. And I think that's really what stands out. If it's a 1-year, $7 million deal, that's a lot easier to swallow or just to stick him in the bullpen. It's that second year that you are concerned about how that's impacting things. A second year that probably wasn't necessary, I'm going to guess, in order to bring him back.
Or at least make it a club option, like did it have to be 2 guaranteed years like that? Although I still do come back to it's 2 years, $14 million. Most MLB teams would swallow that and take the loss. And with this team, with the way things are right now with ownership, that just does not seem to be an option here. Hey, it's Al Galdi for Window Nation. The humidity is rather thick. You've got the AC running on blast, the fans on, and the shades closed, but the heat still seems to be seeping into your home. That is, until you replace your old, drafty windows with energy-efficient, top-quality windows from Window Nation. And right now, you can get 50% off all window styles plus 0 interest for 5 years. You heard that right. With Window Nation, you won't pay any interest until 2030. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. Also, know this, Window Nation will get the job done in a day or less. Window Nation's installation crews have over a decade of experience, so you can feel comfortable knowing that your windows are installed right the first time. Don't procrastinate another day. Save yourself another month of living in discomfort. Don't miss Window Nation's biggest deal of the year, 50% off all window styles now through July 31st. And remember, that comes with 0 interest until 2030. 866-90-NATION or windownation.com. That's 866-90-NATION or windownation.com. And tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
LinkedIn Jobs is here to help small business owners with that crucial step of making the right hires. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates you can manage all in one place. Here's how it works. Simply post your job, and LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. You can either post your job for free or pay to promote it, and promoted jobs get 3 times more qualified candidates. Find out why more than 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring today. Find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/natschat. That's linkedin.com/natschat to post your job for free. LinkedIn.com/natschat. Terms and conditions apply.
Tell you, Lara really threw the ball really well. Was awesome. Commanded the strike zone, had no fear, which was great to see.
The Nats bullpen in this doubleheader split with the Tigers on Wednesday had some problems. Nats relievers over the 2 games officially combined to allow 6 runs in 9 2/3 innings. The 11-2 loss in Game 1. 3 Nats relievers combined to allow 4 runs in 6 innings. Jackson Rutledge, his recent struggles continued. He allowed 3 runs in 2 innings. He, in the top of the 4th, gave up a 3-run homer to center field for a 10-0 Tigers lead, despite Green having been down at 1.02. Eduardo Salazar allowed 1 run in 1 inning. He, in the top of the 6th, gave up a leadoff homer by Spencer Torkelson to left field for an 11-1 Tigers lead. Salazar now has allowed 7 homers in just 27 innings at the major league level this regular season. But a bright spot was Andry Lara. He, in his MLB regular season debut, tossed 3 scoreless innings with 4 strikeouts. He threw 36 pitches, 26 strikes versus just 10 balls. The Nats on Wednesday morning announced having appointed Lara as the team's 27th player for this doubleheader. And then the 9-4 win over the Tigers on Wednesday evening in Game 2. 4 Nats relievers officially combined to allow 2 runs in 3 2/3 innings. Brad Lord officially allowed 1 run in 1 inning. He gave up 2 singles to generate 2 swinging strikeouts. Jose A. Ferrer officially allowed 1 run in 2/3 of an inning. He, in the top of the 7th, gave up a 2-out first pitch, 2-run double by Jahmai Jones to the left center field gap for a 4-3 Tigers lead, though Ferrer did generate 2 swinging strikeouts. Cole Henry tossed a scoreless top of the 8th, and Kyle Finnegan tossed a perfect top of the 9th, the second out coming via an outstanding defensive play by center fielder Jacob Young. A leaping backhanded catch at the outfield wall to rob Green of what would have been his 3rd home run in this doubleheader. tremendous catch by Young, who also had an outfield assist. So the catch by Young stands out, and the debut of Andry Lara stands out. The Nats, for a second consecutive game, getting a reliever who tosses 3 scoreless innings. Finnegan on Sunday and Lara, surprisingly, on Wednesday afternoon.
Slightly different circumstances for those two guys. 9th, 10th, and 11th innings of a high-pressure situation for Finnegan. Lara enters a game that they're down by 9 runs, and they just need somebody to finish it out. But having said that, good for him. This is a guy who signed with them 6 years ago out of Venezuela as a 16-year-old, got, I think, $1.25 million to sign with them. And we saw him earlier this year for the doubleheader at Coors Field. He was called up to be the 27th man, didn't get into the game. And you never know with those things that you're going to get another chance, and you feel so bad. It's happened to a couple of guys over the years. You get called up and never actually get to appear in a game, so you haven't truly entered the major league register for playing. So I guess, silver lining of that blowout loss is it did provide the opportunity to put him out there. And then he did everything he could with that opportunity. Yeah, it's a blowout game, but he went right after guys. 3 scoreless, threw strikes, struck out the first batter that he faced, wound up with 4 strikeouts in 3 innings. He's sent back down after the game, which is what you have to do. You can't keep the 27th man. He's actually at AA-Harrisburg at the moment. His minor league performance this year has not been good. He also dealt with a hamstring injury. This is a very raw 22-year-old who knows what he's going to become in the long run. But he left a positive impression, certainly, for the way he handled this situation. Good for him for having that. And even if he doesn't ever make it back or never has success again at this level, he can always say that he tossed 3 scoreless in his major debut and struck out the very first batter he faced.
Did a good job in a game in which the bullpen was put in a really bad spot because of Trevor Williams. So I give Lara a lot of credit for what he did. So as bad as the Game 1 loss was, the Nats have a chance to win this series against, again, one of the best teams in the majors this season in the Tigers. Game 3, Thursday evening at 6:45. Jake Irvin will be the Nats starting pitcher. Now, I mentioned the historic nature of this Game 1 against the Tigers on Wednesday afternoon. The Nats' first ever game with a jersey patch sponsor. It's been a while since we've spoken, but the Nats and AARP, they on Monday morning, quote, announced a multi-year agreement that makes AARP the club's inaugural jersey patch sponsor and an official community impact sponsor. End quote. So the Nats at last have a jersey patch sponsorship. The Nats, prior to this announcement, were the only team in MLB with neither a jersey patch sponsorship nor a stadium naming rights deal. And the Nats, at a press conference on Monday morning, did confirm that the team now is looking for a stadium naming rights deal. Now, look, the jokes write themselves. I think by now we've all seen and heard the jokes. The Nats have had all these problems with drafting and player development, and their jersey patch sponsorship now is with AARP. But that aside, what did you think? AARP on the field, on the uniforms. How did that look to you?
Just for anyone who doesn't know the answer to this, by the way, AARP stands for the American Association of Retired Persons. Okay. As you said, the jokes write themselves, and when you see that, you can't help but snicker at it at the very least and, make the comparison of what kind of team the Nats are trying to field right now and the major organization that is now sponsoring them. Now, having said that, you can put whatever you want on the jersey. I don't love jersey patches to begin with, but this is a new reality in Major League Baseball. If you have the opportunity to do it, you do it, you take the money, and hopefully you invest it in something that helps make the team better. While, for the first couple of days, we're going to laugh at it and say, boy, of all the sponsors they could have gotten, that's the one that they choose. But you know what? It'll wear off. You won't even notice it over time. As far as jersey patches go, it's pretty nondescript. It doesn't, stand out too much. It doesn't detract from the uniform in any way. So it's fine. I don't love jersey patches, but I really don't care in the end what they are. Take the money. This is what's happening in sports right now. Take the money, invest it, use it wisely. That's my take on it.
It's fascinating that it took this long for the Nats to get a jersey patch sponsorship, and it has taken so long for the Nats to get a stadium naming rights deal, and there's still no guarantee that that will happen, although it does seem like we're on the way to that happening. Far be it from me to question the financial acumen of the Lerner family. They have had far more success in business than any of us could ever dream to have. But man, if in fact the reason that the Nats have not had these deals has been the approach of the Lerner family, which, over the years has come to be known as you grind out deals. You don't settle for a deal unless it meets your exact expectations. It just seems like a penny wise and a pound foolish from a standpoint of all of the millions of dollars the Lerner ownership group has cost itself in not having had either one of these things, a jersey pad sponsorship or a stadium naming rights deal. For all of this time, even if you don't get the exact deal that you want, the exact number that you want, it's better than zero. I don't understand the thought process behind something like that. So at least the Nats do now have this revenue coming in from the jersey patch sponsorship. The patch will be on display for all exhibition games, regular season games, and postseason games. And, there is a poetry / irony / whatever you want to call it. The jersey patch deal announcement came on the same day of the publication of a piece by the Washington Post on the Nats using a headset and virtual reality program called Win Reality, instead of having invested in a more advanced, more expensive pitching machine called TrajectArc, which has become very popular in MLB. Now, Mike Rizzo, in his appearance on the Sports Junkies on Wednesday morning, did say that the Nats will have TrajectArc at some point soon. But this was another one of these, quite frankly, embarrassing anecdotes that gets put out there of the Nats not spending as most other MLB teams are spending. And, it's one thing not to spend on players. I actually think the bigger sin is not spending on infrastructure, because that comes at a fraction of the cost of spending on players. And infrastructure, I think you could argue, is more important than spending on players. Lots of big money contracts in MLB don't work out. In the current landscape of MLB, this information arms race that we're in the midst of, in a time in which now every team is smart. There really are no longer any quote unquote dumb teams. Every team is smart. If you're not doing all you can to obtain every edge that you can, that really sets you back. And something like this TrajectArc scenario with the Nats, not spending the money it takes to get what is the state-of-the-art pitching machine. Just to give you a sense of the cost, okay, this is from the piece, quote, "The cost for a TrajectArc varies based on team, league, and version, but a typical commitment is roughly $500,000 or around $15,000 per month on a 3-year contract," end quote. I mean, for comparison's sake, the Nats are paying Josh Bell this season $6 million, okay? $6 million for Josh Bell. You could have TrajectArc for, again, this cost of roughly $500,000. It makes so much sense. And, it wasn't surprising to read about this, but it was disappointing. And it was confirming of the Nats not doing as they should be doing, and as I think is so important to be doing, and that is spending on infrastructure.
I don't have a whole lot to add beyond what you just said, and said very well. I think there's two elements to it. One is the financial aspect of it, as you mentioned, and how much of that is, ownership not being willing to invest in all aspects of an organization. As you point out, it's not just about Major League payroll. There's so much more that goes into running a successful sports franchise. So there's that part of it. But I think it's also a question of philosophy. And we know that the Nationals baseball operations department is more of an old school philosophy. Now, they've come a long way. I mean, Mike Rizzo is not the, hardened scout that he was 20 years ago. And I only care about the eye test and does a guy have a good face or not? And it's not about any kind of numbers or analytics. No, he's come a long way in that department. That said, they're still, I believe, behind most major league clubs when it comes to taking that kind of forward-thinking, analytical, certainly when it comes to investing in that kind of stuff. So maybe Rizzo and company have been asking for these kinds of things and haven't been given the funding to do it. But I also wonder if that's not necessarily where they are asking for the most help. In their mind, they'd rather have the money to spend on free agents than in infrastructure, as you put it, for things that maybe don't necessarily align with the general philosophy for how they have for building a successful baseball organization.
Yeah, and that's a key point. Is Mike Rizzo asking for this stuff and not getting it, or is he not even asking for this stuff? We don't know. But again, I do know that the difference between making the playoffs and not making the playoffs can be the littlest of things. And it's not 2010 anymore, right? Like all of these teams now are investing money in analytics and infrastructure. And we talk about infrastructure, it's things like sports science, because honestly, when it comes to like analytics, I don't know how much further there is to go. Like most people now understand the difference between OPS and batting average. Like I don't know how much more of that there is to go, but it's the sports science stuff that really is like the next frontier. What do you do with all the StatCast data? How do you process it? How do you translate it? And what do you do when it comes to things like, tuttling pitches and batters' swing paths and things of that nature? And if you have a tool like this Trajectarc, which again, so many MLB teams are using, this isn't like an anomaly. Like all of these teams are using this and the Nats are not. It just like slaps you right across the face of, man, the Nats aren't even in on something like this when, again, the cost just isn't that much relative to what these ownership groups are spending on players. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. This installment of Nats Chat is brought to us by the DC Grays, part of the Cal Ripken Summer Collegiate Baseball League. The Grays are playing their games this season at Woodbridge High School in Northern Virginia. To donate and learn more about the Grays, visit dcgrays.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
3-2 the count. Here it comes. Fastball driven in the air to deep center field. Back goes Jacob Young to the wall. He climbs the wall and he caught